TalkCatholic.com
And
with
now
Tim
Talk
Kilcoyne.
Catholic
It is for
with
Saturday,
Tim
thus our
Kilcoyne,
interview.
a show
and we
about
continue
faith
on with
and
Dr.
other
Mark
teachings.
Rollo of the Massachusetts Citizens for Life, who has recently moved towards retirement, but I have the feeling it isn't going to be so. He has much work to do. Remember, first Saturday. Make your commitment to do 5 consecutive first Saturdays in honor of Our Lady and her commitment to you to be there at the hour of your death. And it just requires going to Mass, and before that, go to confession, and then say the Rosary, and then meditate for 15 minutes on all 15 mysteries of the Rosary. Do take most seriously the first Saturdays, 5 consecutive first Saturdays, as we prepare for the true manifestation of the Fatima message. And in light of the times in which we are right now, with the kind of things that we're dealing with in the church, it most definitely is a time to look at your watch and take some spiritual inventory. And keep in mind that everything that you do is in reparation to the Immaculate Heart of Mary and all the blasphemies committed against her. So do spread the word about the 5 first Saturdays with your Catholic friends and non-Catholic. And I wanted to start out with just a very basic question, trying to get at the heart of his inspiration for his willingness to fight the fight. Doc? Was there a particular turning point, I wonder, for you in being motivated to engage?
I'm a cradle Catholic, and I grew up in a family that was very pro-life, so I heard, from the time I was a child, so I was very to always have the value of life. My own mother was one of the first to help create the local chapter of Massachusetts Citizens for Life.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. What a legacy.
My own father was a surgeon, and he was the president of the medical staff. Roe v. Wade question in the hospital about doing abortion. He came out strongly against it, and when they told him, well, you're the president of the medical staff, so you don't have a vote, that was the rule back then, that the president would have to preside and not have a vote, he resigned.
Wow. God bless him.
He resigned so that he could register his vote that he was against it. So I've been blessed to have grown up in this kind of
the church militant.
Not going to church on Sunday was not an option.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've been blessed to have been brought up in a way where I've always been exposed to these values.
One of my questions that I put on my list for you, Doc, had to do with the disproportionate correlation between wisdom, moral wisdom, and intelligence. Well, you can go back to the Sanhedrin if we want to, relative to the intellectual elite of our Lord's day and how they became the problem for Jesus. Doctor, having to work in the environment of very smart people, quote unquote, what is the deal that so many of the intellectuals amongst us seem to be clueless with regard to basic moral common sense?
Yeah, well again, I think it's pride, and I think that we've done well to advance civilization from a scientific and from a technological point of view.
Yeah.
Human nature is human nature, and that has not really advanced at all. In fact, I think it goes through cycles of getting a little bit better and then going through gravity. You talk about Christian Europe, and then you look at something like the French Revolution that undid all of that. So it's and again, getting back to the Garden of Eden, God, the devil said, well, you can eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil because then you'll be like God. And people have always wanted to be like God. They and make their own rules.
And those who are given the gifts of greater intelligence, quote unquote, it's a real power. Certainly to be used for the good, for the glory of God, and yet can be used for the glory of oneself. No question about it. I would maintain that all the greatest destruction in human history has been done by the elites. It isn't Joe and Josephine, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, I always think about what William F. Buckley once said. He said, I'd rather
the telephone book.
Right, I'd rather be governed by the first 100 people in the telephone book than the faculty of Harvard. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, it's an incredible thing, the concept of spiritual blindness somehow being more possible over the smart and the gifted and the intelligent. It's amazing. It really is, as Pontius Pilate is looking at truth himself, what is truth? And there he is. Just incredible. And I made comment in a previous show about my travails, my journeys through the nursing home and assisted living network.
As a happy trumpet player.
And having run into way too often what I have consistently labeled an administrative meanness amongst the hierarchy. One time I walked in at Christmas time to a nursing home, and I was given about 16 different directions to follow right at the front door. And I said, why do I get the impression you've enjoyed giving me every single one of those? And I got news for you. I'm here for you today, not them. I mean, there's an old book called Wisdom, Age, and Grace. I think they're supposed to go together, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, you know, we value, like you were saying before, we are valuing our elders less and less. And we see people, you know, in a utilitarian.
Yeah. You know, I should speak to my grandfather. He was a great man. Just had would have been 139 years old this past week.
He lived in good health to 102.
James F. Hastings. And Granddaddy was remarkable. And he went to church every single day of his life. I asked an old friend of my mom, Mary Burke Philbin, whether that was the case throughout his whole life spectrum. She says, as far as I know, it was. He was driving his car till 100. He was wheeling and dealing in the stock market to 101. But most especially, he had that depth of Catholic thought. You know, that, as they say, quick as a whip. Well, especially in the spiritual realm, with his rosary in his hands. But, you know, consistently he actually laid the groundwork for citing and saying the rosary on Sunday nights with us, my siblings and myself, in the earliest years of our life. And I cannot say what a profound, indelible mark it made. Certainly on me, and I believe on all of my siblings. I don't believe it ever left us. The ability to pierce through the darkness with the light of the Rosary, in particular, Our Lady really keeping us free from mental error. When I think also when my grandfather lost his wife, my Nana, we immediately, this is my mom's father, we were only a couple of streets up living at the time, and we decided to go down and, you know, live with Granddaddy for the remaining years of his life. Might have been another 10, 12 years. But it was a very natural thing to do. My other grandparents were long gone, and it was just like, you don't ask questions. You know, when my dad took a stroke going back around 2007, I had been off in many different places for many, many years. And the bell simply rang, and I says, okay, I'm all by myself. I'm single, always have been. Time to go home and take care of Dad. And then when Dad died, it was time to stay right where I was and take care of Mom. And I'm not trying to, you know, look for trophies or anything. This was just a very natural thing to do relative to the natural law. And I just find it so sad that people don't have the same sense of obligation. And it is in our catechism that we are under obligation to take care of, be supportive of our elderly parents, most especially, and grandparents.
Our culture has gotten away from, you know, we're all separated out instead of having extended families living together. The grandparents are in a nursing home.
Yeah.
And, I think of the main reason that people give for wanting to kill themselves or have physician-assisted suicide is because they don't want to be a burden. It's not because of excruciating pain.
Right.
They don't want to be a burden. And yet what we are doing by making laws regarding physician-assisted suicide we are saying, well, yes, in fact, you are a burden. And
exactly.
We do want to, get you out of our way. We want to get our inheritance, whatever the case may be. So it's a very schizophrenic thing that we do to pass these laws when the chief reason for people have for wanting to take their lives is because they're afraid they're a burden, and we're basically agreeing with them, saying, yeah, you are a burden. We're going to make this law to make it easier for you to get out of our way.
Yeah. Yeah. In that light or darkness, can you speak very quickly? I think we touched on it in a previous show, but what is allowed by way of, let's say, painkillers to make this last chapter, a little bit easier on the patient versus that. And I'm thinking of morphine because that tends to be most common when it comes to some of these situations down the home stretch.
Right, and that's a very valid use of morphine is to kill the pain while the person is going through his last days and hours. But what the physician-assisted suicide folks want to do, not kill the pain, they want to kill the patient.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, we now, more than ever before, have the ability to do palliative care and to do hospice and to take care of people as far as their pain is concerned without killing them. Now, sometimes you give morphine to the extent that they will die a little bit sooner, but that's not your intention. Your intention is to relieve their pain, but sometimes you may hasten their death. But that's ethically okay because it's not your intention to kill the patient. It is your intention to relieve pain.
Right.
Physician-assisted suicide people are deliberately, they're supporting the physician deliberately writing a prescription to give to patients to kill themselves.
Right. Let me quickly read from our catechism on the Fifth Commandment and the summary of all the major teachings here. This is page 618 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church, second edition. The prohibition of murder does not abrogate the right to render an unjust aggressor unable to inflict harm. Legitimate defense is a grave duty for whoever is responsible for the lives of others or the common good. Any particular reflection on that statement? It does seem that obviously you don't hear too much about the overwhelming focus or level of accountability of the doctors themselves and the quote unquote loved ones closest to the people that have given authority to commit these acts.
Yeah, well, I speaking of the medical profession itself, I think it's a grave injustice to make a healing profession into a killing profession.
Right.
I know, like personally, when I'm taking care of a patient, especially an elderly person, if they're coming to me and they know that I, as a physician, if this law goes through, if I have a physician have the power to heal them or kill them,
right.
What does that do to a patient trust? I think it damages it significantly.
Absolutely.
You always have to be seen by your patient as being always on the side of life, always on the side of their life.
Right.
And the ultimate objection or the ultimate way we really mistreat our patients is not only when we physically won't take care of them, but when they come to us expressing depression, physician-assisted suicide is even being applied to those people who are depressed.
Right.
They reach, there are in Canada, and I believe in Belgium and the Netherlands, psychiatric patients, the very definition of depression is a kind of hopelessness and a fear of abandonment. And the ultimate abandonment is to say, okay, well, we're going to put you out of your misery as far as your depression is.
Exactly. Let me follow up with, again, some more catechetical teaching, because there really needs to be clarification from the church perspective, because there's been an overwhelming silence on the greatest of evils here. It says, paragraph 2322, from its conception, the child has the right to life. Direct abortion, that is, abortion willed as an end or as a means, is a criminal practice. This is Gaudium Spes, Vatican II. Gravely contrary to the moral law, the Church imposes the canonical penalty of excommunication for this crime against human life. We never hear this, of course, but this is the Church's official teaching. Because it should be treated as a person from conception, the embryo must be defended in its integrity, cared for, and healed like every other human being. Regarding euthanasia, whatever its forms or motives, is murder. It is gravely contrary to the dignity of the human person and to the respect due to the living God, his creator. Suicide is seriously contrary to justice, hope, and charity. It is forbidden by the fifth commandment. You know, those soldiers in World War II with the Nuremberg trials, they were trying to suggest that they were just obeying orders. No, they still have a conscience. God always is there to speak to that conscience, and that there is a level of personal responsibility, no matter your title, your state of life, your status, the level of fanfare that one might have, especially in these days with the internet, where you can have a huge following, giving the false impression that you're actually an authority, is because there has been this, safe to say, a vacuum regarding the most elementary, basic issues of human life itself. I can't remember virtually in my lifetime, Doc, hearing any in-depth analysis, morally speaking, from the pulpit on a Sunday.
But hold that thought. This is WQPH Radio, 89.3 FM.
No, I agree with you. I have heard of it a few times, and too few, but I can tell you that personally, when I hear somebody give a sermon about the evil of abortion, I am inspired.
Yeah.
And I wish I would hear it more. I think too often, the clergy are conscious of people perhaps being in the congregation who have been victims of abortion. They've had abortions themselves, and they don't want to, offend people. But I really think that thinking needs to be. We need to be inviting anybody who's committed any kind of sin to offered redemption, but we can't smooth over our sins. We need to call these things what they are. They're gravely evil, whether it's abortion or whether it's assisted suicide or.
And going back to our understanding at the beginning of language matters. Language matters. Just the expression you just uttered, gravely evil. When have we heard that expression? Yeah, that has a ring of truth to it in the human conscience.
Yeah, people don't. I've been in debates before, and people say, "Don't say evil."
I know. I was watching a daily mass just yesterday, actually on TV, and I'm sorry to say, the particular priest made comment. It was the feast of St. Mary Magdalene, and he was making the claim that there were several demons within her, but that doesn't mean that she was evil. She just had challenges. There were evils within her, and they had to be exorcised. It's okay to call evil what it is, but indeed, we are just so scared to death. In a book called "America's Expiration Date," Cal Thomas makes the comment that basically anybody who stands for traditional mores, which would have been the moral compass of yesterday, is anathema to the common state of mind that is upon us, especially in the media, no question. I'm thinking of somebody who's just been doing unbelievable heroic work in the field of pro-life has been Father Frank Pavone, of course, of priestforlife.org. And I was just on his website last night brushing up, and I was looking at a letter that he wrote just this past June 25th, to the hierarchy.
Specifically to the pastors of the United States.
Helping them to remember some of the statements of Gaudium Spes, talking about the freedom of the church to proclaim the gospel, the faith as it is, wherever. When necessary, especially where rights are violated. It did call to attention that the church is not to take all kinds of political sides and team up with a party and that kind of thing. But as a shepherd of the flock, she absolutely has the right to point the way relative to these moral matters. And he was referring, to everything being on the line, quote unquote. in this upcoming election, the current administration at least does protect us relative to these issues. President Trump issued an executive order, I believe it was in 2017, relative to that Johnson Amendment, where he wants to hear from those of the synagogue, the mosque, and the church in the public forum. He doesn't want any squashing of free speech.
No one has done more in my lifetime. No president has done more in my lifetime for religious freedom and for protecting life than President Trump. We just need our priests, religious leaders to let us know that, yes, in fact, abortion is evil. Yes, in fact, abortion is never a valid option, and the same thing with suicide.
And that there's a hierarchy of values at work here where these life issues cannot be put on the same table with social, economic, so-called justice issues. The distribution of goods and services cannot be raised to the same very level as the slaughter of the innocents.
Right. Yeah, the so-called seamless garment art.
Right.
We have the value of life with respect to social injustice and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, yes, there is a hierarchy of good and evil, and the ultimate evil is killing.
Right. Unjust killing as opposed to war. There is a legitimacy, a Catholic Christian legitimacy to self-defense, right. But where it comes to the unjust, innocent slaughter of human life, that is anathema.
Right. It's killing the innocent that's always forbidden.
Yep. This is not the time of my mom and dad when you could be very silent about your faith and not be worrying about, common sense issues being called into question. This is a radically different time that really does call for verbal leadership, but also accountability on the part of us lay faithful. Any thoughts about how to increase the education of us as regular folk under God's grace, to move the ball here?
You got to have a battle plan. You got to be very skeptical about what you hear from the popular media.
Yeah.
You got to. I think there is no institution in the history of the world that has the wealth of knowledge that the Catholic Church. You'll never go wrong by if there's any issue that comes up, pick up the catechism and see what the church says about it.
Certainly one of the sources I would recommend all of God's faithful go to are the converts to our faith, because they tend to be highly interested in what the church truly has believed and still does, that there is a deposit of faith that is not to be questioned and made up as time rolls along, kind of like the anti-constitutionalists in the political realm, but rather there is a deposit of faith that honestly has to be communicated from one generation to the next. It's called the common sense of God's wisdom, i.e.
the sensus fidelium.
And we just... I think amongst the converts, they've got the fire in the belly for sure. It's a la Jesse Romero. He's not a convert, but, well, you could say he's a convert from sin at one time in his life. But he says in a particular excerpt from that book I read earlier, Christ demands zeal from his followers. There is nothing anywhere in the Gospels that even remotely implies that Jesus is okay with us being lukewarm or mediocre with living our faith. In fact, it's pretty clear the exact opposite is the case. I came to cast fire upon the earth, and would that it were already kindled. Luke 12, verse 49. Because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew you out of my mouth. Revelation 3, verse 16. He answered, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself.
Doc, at the airing of this show, we now know that these bills, the death bills I call them, did not go through with the initial deadline of July 31st, but you mentioned that they still could go through, and we need to be very much on guard.
These things are not dead in the water.
No, these things will continue to come back, and there's never a bad time to call your legislator and say, I want you to put forward laws that protect the innocent and that protect life.
Yes.
there's never a bad time to call and express those things.
And you made comment in a previous show about one phone call can make a difference.
It absolutely does, and I've heard it from legislators themselves that if their phone is ringing off the hook, they'll think twice about making a decision in favor of one of these bills.
We are all truly indebted to you and the work that you have been putting in for our Lord for such a long period of time, kind of in the crosshairs of in the crossfire, literally, of the principalities at war. Good and evil are upon us, and you are willing to fight the fight. God bless you in the spirit of St. Paul.
Well, thank you, Tim. It's that's what we're called to do. We're called to do the hard things and ask for the grace to be able to do it.
Well, you have done it, and I hope you'll just keep doing more for WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. And may we give you great tribute as we remember your commitment to life this election day. Let's make God proud. Have a great week, everyone. Let your light shine. That is what it's all about here at WQPH Radio 89.3 FM. But we need to hear your story. You want your voice to be His voice. That is making the faith known to others. Please, my number is 877-625-3727. Tim Kilcoyne, TalkCatholic.com. St. Mother Teresa told us, your ministry is your work right where you are. Grab on to this microphone. God bless.